We'll go ahead and call the Willmar City Council meeting for Monday, April 16th to order. Roll call.
Mayor Calvin.
Here.
Councilmember Nelson. Here. Christensen.
Here.
Schwantes. Here. Alvarado.
Here.
Osmus. Here. Maskey.
Here.
Plowman.
Here.
Fagerly.
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So are there any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda? I would like to add a resolution declaring surplus equipment and authorizing the sale at public auction to be added to the agenda. Also Minnesota Main Street program presentation to the resolution. And then to concur with Willmar Municipal Utilities membership and agreement with MRES. Mr. Peterson, you have one item you'd like to add as well.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. There is a car form that is behind your April 9th Planning Commission minutes in the consent agenda. That should be a separate agenda item, and it has to do with the introduction of an ordinance to rezone property.
So in addition to those 4 items, is there anything else that the council wishes to add to the agenda?
Do we need those 2 motions?
Yes, we also need to have a motion to approve the Community Ed and Rec Director position, and also then a second motion to hold on the advertising and filling of a position for the Community Center Specialist. Is there anything else? Seeing and hearing none, with the amended motion to the agenda, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. The first item is a resolution declaring surplus equipment and authorizing sale at the public auction. Mr. Scott, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Before you in your packet is a resolution for your consideration. The resolution declares certain equipment owned by the city to be surplus to the city's needs and directs that equipment be sold in the city auction on May 11th. The resolution also approves as to form template agreements that can be used for the city to be signed by anyone purchasing equipment from the city in the auction, pursuant to which the purchasers would be accepting the equipment as is and releasing the city from any liability resulting from their use after the sale. The recommendation, given that the auction is on May 11th, is that the council approve this resolution in time for the notice of the auction to be published with the equipment listed on Exhibit A to the resolution.
Council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and approved to support a resolution declaring surplus equipment, authorizing sale at public auction, and supporting documents for liability releases. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next is Minnesota Main Street Program presentation. Ms. Anderson.
Mayor, members of the council, before you is a resolution to allow the mayor and the city administrator to enter into an agreement with PAM, the Preservation Alliance of Minnesota, to continue as a Minnesota Main Street program affiliate for the year 2018. This program would allow the city to have several benefits from PAM, including different trainings and different things that we saw in the work session. The city isn't currently in this agreement. So the sooner we can get this signed, the better.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve a resolution to support Minnesota Main Street program at a $2,000 expense. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next is to concur with Willmar Municipal Utilities membership and agreement with MRES. Mr. John Herron.
Thank you. In your meeting packet is a resolution. It's a concurring resolution with utilities, Willmar Municipal Utilities. It's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Willmar concurring in resolution number 18 of the Willmar Municipal Utilities Commission, authorizing membership in Missouri Basin Power Agency doing business as Missouri River Energy Services. Accepting the provisions of membership agreement and bylaws of Missouri River and appointing a representative to Missouri River and approving the power supply agreement S1.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve Willmar Municipal Utilities membership and agreement with Missouri MRES. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson. Aye. Christensen.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Mr. Peterson, if you could present the next item, please.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, the Planning Commission recently acted on a request to rezone property. The application was filed by Legacy Group Development, and that is the developer that's doing the half-block redevelopment this summer that's south of Schwegman's Cleaners in the old Handy Stop block there. They have purchased an additional 2 properties that front on 2nd Street and have requested that those be rezoned from R3 low-density multifamily residential to general business to be consistent with the rest of their property. The Planning Commission has held a hearing on this request, and because it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the property is in a transition area, they have recommended that the ordinance be amended to reflect that rezoning. So it's a recommendation of staff that the ordinance be introduced tonight for a public hearing to be held on May 7th.
So
I'd
moved.
offer that.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to introduce a resolution to rezone certain properties on First Street as described. Discussion.
It's for a public hearing.
Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What currently occupies this piece of property, and do you know if there's future development anticipated?
There is future development anticipated. It might be a building that goes on part of this property. It's primarily going to be parking and landscaped area to serve the rest of the project. Currently, there's a duplex on the property and there's a single-family home, and the Planning Commission also considered requests to relocate both of those structures and approve those. So those homes will be relocated within the community.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just something to think about for the public hearing. We have an ordinance where if a lot is over an acre, you have to have a holding pond. I think this is 1.02 acres now, and then if they add additional 2 lots, will they have to have a holding pond for their surface water then?
The stormwater ordinance will apply. I won't speak for the engineering department on what will be required, but they will definitely have to contain their runoff on site, and they can't discharge it any quicker than it currently leaves the site. So they will have to do engineering, curbing, parking layouts, building design. The whole site design will have to take that into consideration.
Okay, no underground storage like the auto parts store in First Street and North American Bank?
It's an option should they choose to do that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have an introduction of an ordinance for a public hearing to rezone certain properties on First Street. Roll call. I'm sorry, simple motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Next, we have a motion to approve the community ed and rec position and advise the school district that the council is in, has released the hold on filling that position.
I'll make that motion for the community ed and rec director position.
Correct.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to notify the school district that we have released the hold on advertising for the position of community ed and rec director position. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next is a motion to hold off on filling the position of civic center at the community center specialist position.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to hold on filling the position of civic center supervisor. Discussion. Councilmember Nelson.
Just a clarification, there isn't a position approved yet, so with that. So we're holding on the job description and the position kind of thing, correct?
Correct. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Next are consent items. Ms. Thompson.
On the consent agenda this evening for council's approval are the city council minutes of April 2nd, Willmar Municipal Utilities Board minutes of April 9th, Planning Commission minutes of April 4th, Planning Commission special meeting minutes of April 9th, the state temporary liquor permit for Willmar Lakes Rotary Club, and for council's acceptance, the Board of Zoning Appeal minutes of April 9th, Police and Fire Department statistics for March, and the monthly building report for March, and the accounts payable through April 11, 2018.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the consent items as submitted. Discussion. Councilmember Alvarado.
I think it's important for the city, the citizens of Willmar to know that the reason we're having a liquor permit for the Rotarian Club is it's because of the governor's opener, and they're going to have a special Rockin' Robins event. And I think if you have that opportunity, you should take advantage of it because they're a great time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Additional discussion. All in favor, roll call.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Next is our open forum, and the first member we have is Ms. Carol Lammer. If you could state your name and whether you reside within the city of Willmar or not.
Carol Lammer, and yes, I do reside in Willmar. If you ask, some people may say you're never home, but yes, I do reside in town.
Thank you.
I just have a handout here. Can I go ahead and pass that out?
Hold on just a second. Who's my timer tonight? Thank you.
You wasted 3 minutes, but that's all right. Can I pass that out?
There you go.
And you can get over there. What you see is what we learned at the Minnesota Municipal Utilities Association. I'm speaking on behalf of the Commission for the Utilities. First off, I forgot to thank you for letting me speak and for letting me to serve on that commission. I was down there this past week for the legislative rally, and what I'm sharing with you are our key messages and talking points that we had. When I got back from that meeting, or during that, at the end of the meeting, John and I spoke, the general manager and I spoke a little bit, and I said, you know, earlier this year we were out on the federal level and we spoke to our congressmen out there, and now we were just down at the state and we spoke to them there, and I feel we should speak to our local, per se, legislators, our local council. So that's what I'm just saying in this 3 minutes. I'm just sharing this with you. There's a lot to go into it. I'll just read these off so that it will be recorded in that respect. It's shortened there a little bit. The first one is preserving the regulatory compact. That's where that we make sure that we keep regulations in place. They are talking about having third parties that would come in and offer electricity to consumers and not be regulated, and that spells a bad deal for our customers. And there's a lot more detail on that, but I will not go into that. Number 2 is preserving local control of municipal utilities. Again, keeping that local here on some of the rules that are to be made up, that we're keeping it in Willmar and not in St. Paul, or as they say, keeping it on Main Street, not on Wall Street. Number 3 is sustainable SIP improvements, and again, working with utilities, they use lots of acronyms, and SIP stands for C is Conservation Improvement Program. And there's things that are it's the energy things that we've put in place in our community, and they kind of fulfill those across the state, and they're looking at revamping that program. How do we do that? And that's everybody within the state, including even the IOUs, the investor-owned companies. And then number 4 is why municipal utilities. Again, it's local. We provide jobs in town here for people, and we'd like to keep it that way. As a citizen of this community, I've learned a lot being on this commission about electricity, about the local control, and am a very strong advocate. Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Schroeder. And if you want to wait until we get this timer figured out, it'll be to your advantage. And then state whether you live within the city of Willmar or not. Go ahead.
Darlene Schrader, I live outside the city of Willmar. I'd like to thank the mayor and council for the opportunity to speak tonight. I currently chair the Willmar Community Center Advisory Board and would like to thank you also for the opportunity to work in that capacity. 4 years ago, or 2 years ago, we had 4 community meetings seeking input from the community. As a result of that, our board adopted guiding principles. The overarching principle is that we're about community building. And then related to that is we embrace diversity and welcome and value everyone in the community. That is people of all ages, as well as whatever your cultural or background is. Another principle that we adopted is that we're a resource to and we're resourced by the community. And I raise that tonight because before you is consideration of a position for someone to supervise or coordinate the center. And to me, it's important to, before you talk about what that person is, who's to be a resource to move it forward, which is what are the goals, the directions, what are the values, what are we expecting from the community center? And to me, that flavor should come through in the job description and also in the whole hiring process. So I would encourage you, given I know how important your time is, but nothing's more important than your community center and mine, is to consider having some discussion at a meeting soon at a work session where we can delve into this a little bit more. I just want to share briefly a couple anecdotes from the community center that shares the flavor as I've experienced it. A week ago Friday, when there was not a snowstorm, we had a drum circle. And we had the first one 3 weeks before that. It was myself and John Maldonado. And I met John because his wife was at the Somali dance classes, and he was in the play area with his kids. And he said, why don't we have salsa dances? So we met, and then he said, what about these drum circles? So he and I met, we drummed. The next time his wife came and their kids came, and the next time 2 other people came. Last time we had probably 8 people from that are African in background. We had a family that is Latino. We had the daughter of a gentleman who spent a lot of time in the South Pacific. And before we started, a woman came to the door and she said, we're here for the drum performance. I said, there is no performance, it's a drum circle. She said, we're from the girls' group home. And I said, well, we sure hope you come in and join us. So we had about 8 teenage girls in the staff. And to me, it was an absolutely cool night because we had women who were Kenyan and Ethiopian sharing finger drumming this way, John Maldonado, who is setting the bass, and we had these teenage girls who came for a performance and left, having experienced community and being part of community. So that's a little bit about the experience that I have had at the
Thank you for
community
your
center.
comments. Our first public hearing will be general obligation water revenue notes, Series 2018, in the amount of $1,620,000. Mr. Okens. I'll open the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, to give you a brief history of what we have for you tonight is that we have a number of hearings. The first one we have here is for the item you mentioned. We have got 4 hearings tonight, a number of actions, and we have historically the last couple of years worked with local institutions to place these locally. We've had some preliminary discussion with those local institutions. There's a number of factors that we've had in discussing with them that may not allow us to do that in these issues. Some of those factors are the volume of debt that we are issuing, the possibility of some being private, some being public, the Caris Health discussion that has taken place, and the need to have a discussion with Moody's rating agency. The reasons that we have been able to place them locally the last couple of years is cost savings and not having to have a rating and work that out with the local institutions to place them locally. We do continue to have discussions with the local institutions to come up with another program, possibly to fund local projects. Example might be projects that the community is discussing of Robbins Island and other projects that would be locally in nature. Tonight, for these hearings, we have a representative from Springstead here, Kathy Aho, and if you would allow her to do, she has a short PowerPoint presentation and be able to walk us through the processes of the 4 hearings and the actions required. And with that, I'd ask Kathy to come up.
Ms. Aho, nice to see you again. Glad you
Nice
made
to
the
see
trip
you.
back to Willmar.
Mr. Mayor, council
nice-
members, good evening.
Nicer weather than last time you were here.
Yes, well, you're talking to somebody who had Twins tickets for Saturday, so
Oh, okay.
the weather's at the top of my mind. Yeah. Oops. Mr. Mayor, council members, I have arranged this PowerPoint so that it will correspond with your hearings. The first one is on a general obligation sewer revenue note. I do have notes in terms of on your electronic council packets. On page 75 is the ordinance that we'll be talking about regarding this geo sewer revenue note. The action that's being discussed is the approval of an ordinance that would authorize the issuance of $1,620,000 general obligation sewer revenue notes and levying taxes for payments. The improvements that are to be financed are improvements to the city's sewer system, and specifically those are 3 lift stations, the Fairgrounds, Armory, and Gordon Avenue. This particular financing will be placed with the Minnesota Public Facilities Authority. You have other waste treatment facility debt with them. It's at very attractive rates, and it's the intent to repay this debt with revenues of the sewer system. A portion of this project will also be paid from funds that are on hand in cities' accounts. I believe that's held with the Minnesota Public Facilities Authority. The action that's requested then is the approval of the ordinance, and again, that begins on page 75 of your council packet.
Take them one at a time. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak to the general obligation water revenue note series 2018 in the amount of $1,620,000? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it to the council. Council, what are your wishes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the general obligation water revenue note series 2018 in the amount of $1,620,000. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus?
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next is a 2018 general obligation street improvement financing. Ms. Aho.
I apologize, I've got these in a little different order. Okay. The 2018 street improvements, this particular item is found on page 90, starting on page 90 in your electronic packets.
Ms. Aho, just a minute, please. The public hearing that we're talking about is actually the one for $2,780,000. You're on the one for $2,975,000.
There you go, just past, there you go.
There you are, right there.
Okay. And this can be found on page 78, starting on page 78 of your council packets. The action or the public hearing is to consider the approval of an ordinance authorizing the issuance of $2,780,000 of general obligation bonds and levying taxes for their payment. This financing will be paid primarily from property taxes or other available funds of the city. It's intended to fund improvements to the city's civic center, primarily to replace the R22 refrigerant system. There was a amendment to the statute last year permitting this kind of a financing to be done under the equipment certificate statute and allowing that financing to extend to 20 years if it's for this purpose. There is also a small piece of this issue that will be done to support the ice resurfacer room, and that would be done as a tax abatement piece. The equipment certificate portion will be all the costs related to the R22 replacement. That will be a 20-year financing. The abatement portion, which will be covered in the fourth hearing you have scheduled this evening, and that would be the costs related to the ice resurfacer room, and it will be comprised of the first two maturities of this bond issue. So the debt service looks like this. It's estimated to be approximately $200,000 principal and interest each year, and those first two maturities that I have within the block would be the portion that's related to the tax abatement. There are two actions requested related to this evening. One would be the purpose of this hearing, the adoption of the ordinance that authorizes the bonds themselves. And the second would be a resolution, which is found on page 81 of your packet, that provides for the sale and sets the terms and conditions.
Thank you. Anybody from the public that wishes to speak to the issuance of $2,780,000 bond series 2018A? Seeing and hearing none, I'll bring it to the council table. Council.
Motion to approve the.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the ordinance authorizing the issuance of $2,780,000 bond series 2018A. Discussion. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Ms. Aho, maybe you can answer this. We have the ability to pay cash for this, and I think you know our financial position, City of Willmar. Why wouldn't we?
I think that's probably more a question for you and city staff. There's always that possibility if you do have the cash. I don't know if that's been a discussion at the city or not.
It really hasn't been brought up until now, but I'm wondering why we wouldn't pay cash for it. We certainly have the ability, the money's there. Would it hurt our bond rating?
The amount of cash that you have as a fund balance is a factor in your bond rating. We would have to look at and we're working through this now, the numerical assessment that they do as part of the rating methodology. We would need to look at what taking that amount of cash out would do to that there are a number of categories that they measure, and the cash on hand, the fund balance is one of them.
Well, the city or the state suggests, there's not a mandate or a statute that says we have to have X amount of dollars in hand, but they suggest we have about twice what they suggest, put it that way, sitting at maybe about $8 million. And that's therefore my question, why wouldn't we pay cash for it?
I think again, and I'm not trying to sidestep the question, but in terms of the city and its operations, the things that you have going on, it is really a policy decision as to what fund balance level is appropriate. One thing that the city has that isn't common across the state would be the hospital. And the fact that you have a significant general obligation issue that the hospital has been paying, so I don't want to suggest otherwise. But there's a risk element with that, which would factor into it. But it really is a local question. What do you feel comfortable having as a council as a fund balance?
But you're familiar with Centricare and our hospital situation?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I asked the council then, why wouldn't we pay cash? What are the reasons? That the removal of the ice making, or the liquid in there is mandated and we have to do it and we have the money, why wouldn't we pay cash? Why would we bond for this?
The motion on the table is to adopt an ordinance authorizing the issuance of $2.78 million for bond series 2018A. Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Metzger.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
You know, I'm going to abstain.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstain.
That resolution passes. Next is an introduction of a resolution providing for the competitive negotiated sale of the aforementioned bonds.
I'll enter that motion.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to introduce a resolution providing for the competitive negotiated sale. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Abstain.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstain.
That resolution passes. Next is, I'll open the public hearing for General Obligation Improvement Bond Series 2018 B as in boy. Ms. Aho.
Mr. Mayor, council members, this hearing is to consider the ordinance authorizing the issue of $2,975,000 general obligation improvement bonds, Series 2018B, and levying of taxes to secure payment. This financing is to be paid in part by special assessments and in part by property taxes or other available funds of the city. It has two component parts. One consists of various street improvement projects, which is a recurring theme for the city. They have an improvement project each year that does that. Approximately $660,000 of that project will be assessed against benefited properties. The second improvement is an improvement to the city's Western Interceptor storm sewer, and that portion is separately authorized under statute. On the screen is a summary of the sources and uses. There are a number of sources that comprise the street improvement portion, which actually funds about $3.1 million in project costs and $1.5 million for the Western Interceptor. Again, the annual debt service, less the assessment income, is approximately $260,000 per year. The actions requested would be an ordinance authorizing the improvement bonds and secondly, the resolution providing for that sale.
Anybody from the public that wishes to speak to the issuance of $2.975 million for bond series 2018 B-Boy? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it to the council. Council, what are your wishes?
Mayor, I'll move to,
Go ahead.
I'll move to adopt the ordinance authorizing the issuance of 2.975 million bond series 2018B.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next would be a resolution to introduce a resolution providing for the competitive negotiated sale of the bonds above.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes as well. Next, I'll open a public hearing for the issuance of tax abatement bonds to finance the Civic Center improvements. Ms. Aho.
This hearing is to consider the approval of proposed property tax abatements for the purpose of issuing 140,000 general obligation tax abatement bonds. As I mentioned earlier, this is not an additional bonding amount. This amount is included within the bonds that you previously authorized for the Civic Center project. This piece in particular provides a statutory vehicle to finance the construction of the new ICE resurfacer room, which is not something that is included under the equipment certificate statute. In order to do this, there were 73 residential parcels that were proposed to be included in the abatement. I just want to, one reason that we picked residential properties is that they are very unlikely to need to be included in an abatement or a tax increment district going forward. The second thing is that it's an action that is totally neutral to those properties. So they will pay no less, no more in property taxes than they would otherwise. So they should be indifferent to being included in the abatement. We have, as I mentioned, designated the first two maturities of this bond issue as being the ones that are to be supported by this tax abatement. And that is so that the abatement is in place for 2 years and then it goes away. But again, for those particular parcels, there is no financial impact to them. The action that's requested is the approval of the resolution that approves the property tax abatements, and that can be found on page 102 of your packet.
Anybody from the public that wishes to speak on the issuance of tax abatement bonds to finance the Civic Center improvements for the ICE refrigeration building? Seeing and hearing none, I'll bring it to the council table. Council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the issuance of tax abatement bonds to finance the Civic Center improvements. Discussion. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, why wouldn't we pay cash for this? I don't understand it. Why would we bond for that amount for the building that's going to hold the ice making equipment and the Zamboni, from what I understand? Why wouldn't we pay cash? Why put interest on what the taxpayers are going to pay? I mean, I don't get it.
Councilor Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for Mr. Okens, maybe regarding that. Is it possible that, given the city's portfolio and the returns on our portfolio and expected returns and current bond rates, is it more advantageous to maintain our cash positions, investment positions? And that could be one reason why, in other words, money's cheap right now?
That, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Plowman, would be one of a few reasons that the city may consider that, or the council may consider that. As we've discussed in the past, there are really two portions of your fund balance. One is restricted. The restricted portion of your fund balance is restricted by outside sources. The other part, which is unrestricted, has got a number of different classifications, and by past practice, the council has assigned all those portions of unrestricted balances. Some of the examples would be for cash flow that we have discussed in the past, and a number of other issues. The council can certainly reassign, spend down those. It would further discussion with our rating agencies, as we have in the past. That would be one item that they would want to know if that's a trend or continuing to do that. Ms. Aho had mentioned the Caris Health will be having those discussions about what the city is doing moving forward. That would be another reason why the council may want to consider a review of this, not only at this year, but next year, so we know what kind of effects that will have. We've seen some correspondence on that issue now already in regards to Centricare and their ratings. So there are a number of reasons. The council certainly can reassign and use cash if that's your desire. I would recommend that you have discussion for that.
Okay. Can I follow up with one more? So hypothetically speaking, then, in the future, should the cost of bonding, should the notes increase, could the city's financial department potentially take a different stance on, bonding requirements? I mean, is it hypothetically possible that, say, given the cost versus the returns on our current portfolio, that might be a financial recommendation for projects in the future?
It certainly could be. We are noticing the markets on our investment portfolio slightly upticking. All indications are that the Fed fund rates are looking at another 0.25% on borrowing funds, so that would be an additional cost if the council chose to borrow money at a later date as well. All indications are there may be 2 or 3 raises to the Fed fund borrowing rate. So both of those would have factors.
So it's safe to assume the financial department would take a good, strong look at that information and use that in evaluating their recommendation to us?
We certainly would do that. We also take a look at the total debt service portfolio that the city has. Right now, our cash flows and our investment portfolio is we're on a wait and see because of the portfolio and the way it's made up, which we present to you monthly, but we would take that into consideration, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Christensen,
I'm going to abstain.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstain.
That resolution passes as well. Next is an ordinance considering the sale of property to Habitat for Humanity. Mr. Peterson. Ms. Aho, thank you for coming out. Thank you for your good report.
Mayor Kelly, members of the council, this ordinance was introduced at your last meeting, and the proposal is to sell a city-owned property at 1408 14th Avenue Southeast to Habitat for Humanity for the price of $1 plus the cost of the assessments. Those assessments total $9,191.62. Habitat for Humanity has agreed to pay those assessments. Their board meets next week, so if this ordinance is approved tonight, the next step in the process and the final step really would be to have the city attorney draft a quitclaim deed, and then the mayor and city administrator could execute said deed, and staff would have a very simple closing with Habitat and exchange the deed for the checks. The city has been a partner with Habitat in the past, and I think it's a great idea to continue that relationship. It's a recommendation of staff that the council adopt the ordinance, assign it a number, and publish it.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to introduce an ordinance to sell property to Habitat for Humanity, assign it a number, and publish it. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Mr. Scott?
Public hearing.
It was a public hearing. I did not close the public hearing. Do I have to close the public hearing first?
Didn't ask for any
Mr. Mayor, I think it's fine. You called for public testimony. No one, I believe, chose to speak. I think the hearing is deemed closed when you started voting.
Okay. Did you wish to speak? I was looking at you, but I apologize. My mistake. So what we did is fine.
That's fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Next, we have a presentation of the governor's fishing opener. Ms. Fisher and Mr. Hanson.
I think Bruce thought he had something else.
I'll wait for my next one.
Well, that's how I have the agenda. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you about this great event that's coming to our local lakes area here in May. We're all just hoping for the ice to get a little bit thinner before then. We had a great opportunity while Beth is setting this up to meet with Boyd Hoopert from Care 11 just in the last 2 hours. We did a nice little presentation out on Green Lake. Unfortunately, when we were drilling the ice, it still showed 29 inches right outside of Parada Park. But the north side of the lake is only at 24.
Oh, well.
We're hoping for some warm weather after Greg Melgis was also interviewed by Boyd, and he was pretty certain that we would have open ice by then, but we do have a plan, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We appreciate being here. We're going to talk a little bit about the governor's fishing opener, a little bit of history to begin with. It's been around since 1948, and it was created as a way to boost the tourism economy after World War II. Since 1962, it's been traveling from community to community, lake to lake, with, of course, the exception of last year when it was on the Mississippi River in St. Cloud. Since 1976, the governor has been attending all of the different events. It's been in 35 different communities, and we last hosted it in 1995. And this year will be the 71st anniversary, and of course, in the Willmar Lakes area.
So as part of our process of the opener for our area, we had to go up as a committee to St. Cloud when they had their opener to kind of figure out what we had to do, kind of learn the ropes, figure out who the vendors were, who we needed to talk to. And so we sent a group up, and we had a great time in St. Cloud and learned a lot. And they're still helping us out today with all of our processes, just as the next year's governor's opener crew, once they're determined, will come up and tour ours and kind of shadow us as well.
So we are going to obviously feature all of Kennewick County, but we have a number of different events specifically planned in Willmar, Spicer, and New London. A lot of people ask us why. Really, why do we want to host this big event? It's a lot of work, but it's really pretty exciting. It's basically a media fam tour. We're going to invite 125 different media outlets to our community. So they're going to be from TV, radio, print, freelance writers, and social media influencers. And we're going to basically show them around, show them all the wonderful things that we have to offer in the Willmar Lakes area, and then encourage them to write stories about us. So typically each year, it's about a $1.3 million exposure to the community that hosts the event. And you guys all know my budget. I don't have a $1.3 million, so it's pretty significant for our area. Other things that it does, it increases lodging receipts in a really slow time for the year. And of course, community pride, bringing volunteers together side by side, planning such a great event in our area.
We had such a great opportunity to put a playground together with some very talented individuals that are in this room today. And we're learning from those events as well. And we're really bringing community together to pull the governor's fishing opener together for everybody.
Okay, here's just some quick stats for you from last year's event. So it was held in St. Cloud. They had 130 different media personnel there from 60 different outlets. They had over 200 media interviews. And if you go down all the way to that very bottom part of the slide, they had 3,244 media placements made from the event and 732 million media impressions. So again, over 1.3 million publicity value for the community.
So we all know that social media is a huge market nowadays, and this is really the greatest way that we can turn our dollars around to showcase Kennewick County and the Willmar Lakes area. And this is why the CVB did what they did in putting in an application. You actually have to apply to get the governor's fishing opener, and they have to approve it. So this was a task that we had asked for, and we're certainly taking that on with with a whole heart. So our scheduled events, Thursday, May 10th, provided that we are able to golf by then. Even if there's snow on the ground, we'll just give everybody an orange ball to use. But we will be golfing with registration starting at 9. And the golfing event, evening activities, these are things that the media is going to be working to do. We want to keep them busy when they're here. We want to keep them on tours. We want to keep their downtime to a
Vinny,
minimum.
can you check the hall for us, please? Can you check the hall for us?
That's okay. So we have,
It's Kevin Madsen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just seen a lot of heads bopping back and forth, and I was getting nervous, and I was looking at you, and I'm going, what's going on out there?
so we just want to make sure that the media have stuff to do and they're able to see the things that we want to showcase for them for the entire event.
Yeah, so our golf event will be out at Eagle Creek Golf Course here in Willmar. We are also doing a number of different coupon specials for them to go out to the other 4 golf courses in the Willmar Lakes area. Evening activities, we send them out into the communities of Willmar, Spicer, New London, having them try the local cuisine and have just a great time in our area. The Fish Host Appreciation Dinner is also on Thursday night. That's a chance for our 110 fishing hosts that are our volunteer representatives from our community to come together, a chance for us to say thank you to them and for them to understand the rules and kind of really what that weekend will entail for them. Friday is a big day. We start out 5 a.m. From Zorba's on Green Lake, and that's where our PR event is going to be. We are going to have all of our media guests, or a lot of the media guests, live on the air, and we're going to just do a number of different interviews right from the shores of Green Lake.
Yeah, and we wanted to get the kids involved too, so we have 2 different classrooms, one from Willmar, one from the New London School District, that are coming in to do a kids fishing event. That's being put on by our local fishing groups that we have, and they're doing a great job of planning that. Each of the kids will walk away with a real nice rod and reel set that they can keep forever.
Yep, and that kids fishing event will be at Near Park in New London. It's Tina Meyer's class, the 5th grade classroom from Willmar, and Laura Molinar from New London. Then in the morning, and both in the morning and the afternoon, we've got tours planned for our media guests, just taking them out into our communities, again, showing them all the wonderful things that we have to do, everything from houseboat on Green Lake, hopefully it's thawed, and bike ride around town, a tour at Midwest campus, paddling on the Crow River, and a number of other things. So we've got great activities planned for them.
And of course, the kickoff of the entire event for the community is the free community picnic for everybody on Friday night with the original Rockin' Robins theme. This one's called the Rockin' Robins Fishin' Edition. So we're planning on having a great night. The Dam Jammers will be there, putting on a great concert free of public, and there's going to be free food for the first 3,000 guests. So we are doing a lot of planning for that, just like we do for Rockin' Robins. It'll be a wonderfully safe event for all the families to come out and enjoy a great time being put on by the Rotary Club, the CVB, and the Governor's Fishing Opener Crew.
And then that same evening is the first time that our guests and our fishing hosts actually meet each other. They don't meet again until Friday night. So at Friday night at the Willmar Conference Center, they will be paired together, and then they'll plan their strategy for opening day. Here's just some pictures from past radio events. Some kids fishing photos. And some past community picnics. So Saturday is all about, of course, the fishing. So it starts out, we are planning to have the send-off ceremony on the shores of Green Lake at Salisbury Beach. A nice little program, and that will be where the governor will head out, providing that the ice is out. We will also have a shore lunch on the shores of Green Lake. Just a great traditional walleye shore lunch, fishing stories, and all those kinds of things as well, too.
So then we'll move on to the celebration reception at 5:30 and the celebration dinner at the Convention Center here in Willmar at 6:30, where we'll be drawing for the winner of our prize raffles that we're selling, as well as the Explore Minnesota Tourism will be announcing where the next fishing opener is going to be and the host for that.
Okay, a few pictures from past fishing send-off ceremonies, past shore lunches. And we couldn't do this without the community's involvement. So we have an incredible planning team that have been working actually for the last year, a little over a year, because we started working before we went to last year's event. Plus we have 13 different committees. Each one has a chair and volunteers underneath them. There's hundreds of people helping plan this event and put on this event for our area.
So we still do need some volunteers. We're doing a lot of media out there right now, looking for more fishing hosts, more individuals that would be interested in helping with registration, maybe the bus hosts or greeters, things like that, people helping to serve at the community picnic. So if you're looking for something to do that weekend, let us know and we'll plug you into a spot that works for you.
Individuals interested can actually email volunteer@wilmerlakesarea.com if they're interested in getting involved. So again, as Brad said, we're still looking for about 30 fishing hosts. The lakes that we intend to fish on are Green Lake, Diamond Lake, Big Candy, Foot and Willmar Lake, Nest Lake, and South Long Lake.
So all of our fishing hosts are able to choose where they want to fish, where they're comfortable to fish. You don't have to be a great fisherman to be a fishing host. It'd be nice if you owned a boat. It would be great if you had a big enough boat to hold more than one person, but that's fine if you only can take one. But if you want to go out on Lake Lyon and go fishing for the day, that's what you do, and you work with your paired host and your partner to go out and do that. And then the times are really conducive to whatever works best for both of you.
Yep. And if people are interested in being a fishing host, they can go to the Governor's Fishing Opener website, which is mngovernorsopener.com. So I went ahead to the spring, where are you? We know 29 inches on Green Lake, and we need to have some backup plans in place. So as you can see, we have identified a number of different lakes that potentially could host the governor and all of our fishing hosts and our guests. So we're looking at Foot Lake and Willmar Lake as a potential spot for the governor to fish from. And then, of course, there's Big Candy, Wakanda, Lake Elizabeth, Lake Lillian, South Long Lake, Ringo, Norway, and East Solomon. So depending on where the ice thaws, we will be there. And no matter what, we have a number of great options in the Willmar Lakes area, and we will find a place to be able to have a great event.
The whole point of the fishing opener is not so much that it has anything really to do with the governor. It has more to do with the community. And we want to showcase Candioi County and the Willmar Lakes area, and it's great that the governor comes out to fish with us. So it doesn't matter where it is, where we send the governor off, we're here to have a good time, and we're here to showcase our area. We couldn't do this without the sponsors that make this happen for us. We are blessed by this community to be able to have so many businesses and individuals that are willing to give of their time and their financial assets. So we have more sponsors than we have room on our page to put logos. That's a fun discussion to have at our committee meetings when we're trying to figure out where can we put this new logo, which is awesome. So if any of you are representing those businesses in the room, thank you very much.
Yeah, we thank each and every one of you. We couldn't do it without every single one of them.
And of course, last but not least, how can you help? Besides volunteering possibly to help us out at one of the events, we were looking to get some financial assistance as well. So if you're interested in a $10 raffle ticket, you have an opportunity to win a donated by Tracker boat at about $32,000. A very nice Traeger pellet smoker from Runnings at around $800, and a Yeti prize package donated by the campground on Green Lake, the old Park 5, those folks there at about $700. So if you're interested in a ticket, you can let me know. I've got some.
Yes. All of the planning community members have them, as well as many of you, but they're also available at the Convention and Visitors Bureau. In some past pictures. And then we'd open it up to any questions that you guys may have.
So Brad and Beth, thank you very much for your presentation. Council, any questions? Councilmember Schwantes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you both for all the work and effort you have put into this and all of the other committee members. It doesn't happen magically, and I'm sure it has been quite a year. Could you repeat again the contact information if someone wants to volunteer?
Yep. So they can email volunteer@wilmerlakesarea.com. They can also call the Convention and Visitors Bureau if they have any questions.
And we're on all the different social media locations as well. Hashtag only in Minnesota, Willmar Lakes area, and hashtag MNGFO 2018.
Okay. The community meal is happening in Willmar, as you're all aware of, and you all received emails over the weekend. So if you want to assist with helping to serve with that, get Beth your shirt size if you haven't done that yet, so that she can make sure she has a shirt for you. So thank you guys very much for the dedication you have to making Willmar and Candioi County a great place to live, work, and play. And that goes, you guys are always good ambassadors for us, so thank you very much for all the work you do. Thank you for keeping at it, and 29 inches, that won't scare us off. We'll get it done.
We'll get there.
I like the picture that you guys had yesterday of the blowtorch. I thought, oh, that's a good idea. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
What's that?
look real close at that photo. There's a lot of different apparatus being used to try to get through the ice, so.
In my old fire days, I didn't worry too much about that. But I will have to say, in my old fire days, Captain Ken's was a stable at the fire station.
True.
So
And they'll
Captain
be back
Ken's,
again this year for the opener.
yeah, exactly. So Captain Ken's will be there. If you haven't had Captain Ken's beans, you haven't had beans. They are out of this world. They're fabulous.
Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council. Thanks for allowing us to come out tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Next is consideration tax increment development agreement for Legacy Group Development. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Like Beth and Brad, we're waiting for frost to go out of the ground. So that's the big thing we're fighting in our department and waiting for our projects. We've got a development agreement in front of the council tonight. It's the final step in the tax increment financing process with Legacy Group Development. The city has been, city staff, city attorney's been working on this development agreement for quite some time. And what it does is it summarizes the responsibilities and the obligations of both parties moving forward with the Legacy project on First Street. The development agreement has sections dealing with two phases. The first phase is a project in excess of about 6,000 square feet. And the second phase will be a project in the 2,000 to 3,000 square foot range. The council previously approved a tax increment financing program for the city to pay an amount not to exceed $199,755 over a period of 15 years. And again, the amount that's paid back to the developer is contingent on the value of the project that is constructed. So if he does not create a project that generates that value, the city has no obligation to pay that money to him. Recent action by the Board of Zoning Appeals dealing with a parking setback variance and a rezoning for their property are part of the Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals actions to deal with this project. At this point, there's really only two alternatives. One is to approve the development agreement, and the second one would be to not approve the development agreement, which would effectively kill the project. It's a recommendation of staff that the council adopt the resolution approving the development agreement and authorize the mayor and city administrator to execute the agreement.
Council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve tax increment finance development agreement for Legacy Group Development. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson. Aye. Christensen.
Everyone knows where I stand on TIF, so I'm going to vote no.
7 ayes, 1 nay.
That resolution passes. Next is consideration of 2018 crack seal project number 1806 and seal coat project 1808. Mr. Christensen, our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. In front of you is all the information needed for two different project awards, one for the crack seal, one for the seal coat. In general, the crack seal is about 3¼ miles of city streets for the crack seal. And for the seal coat, we've got almost a mile of seal coat this year. The quotes came in at, bids actually, came in at $30,250 for the crack seal and $39,404 for the seal coat. And believe it or not, that within $350 of our estimated budget, which was what we had planned, so.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to approve awarding project number 1806 to Jet Black.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to award project number 1806 to Jet Black in the amount of $30,250. Discussion. Councilmember Fagerly.
Could we expand this and double it then? Or would you have to go back and bid it?
Double is probably too much. My rule of thumb, and without talking with the attorney, is usually if you change a scope more than 20%, you got to rebid it. But as I mentioned, we're within $350 of our budget, so.
No, I mean, double it to 60,500. Double the amount.
I'm not following.
Oh, it's too different.
That's a combined $70,000.
Okay, never mind.
I mean,
Additional discussion.
short answer, yes, we can do whatever you want me to do.
I thought it was two separate bids.
Councilmember Schwantes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could you help us understand how you identify projects that are going to have this process done? I think you're aware that there was a question from the public within the last week or so. So if you could just give some background on how you identify what areas.
Sure. And the question from the public, if I understand correctly, was for a reconstruct project, not for crack seal, seal coat. So unless I'm misunderstanding what you're saying.
Yeah, there was one for a seal, for the crack seal, not a reconstruct,
Okay, I
but
didn't hear that
sealing
question,
cracks.
so I apologize for that. The general rule is about half of that dollar amount that we put in there each year. Both of these items, for a crack seal and for a seal coat, both of these items are considered, what I've done a number of talks to the council on is of pavement maintenance. And so after a street's been rebuilt, when it's up to that standard, we do a PCI, which is Pavement Condition Index, on all streets in town, and we have a running database of that. So what happens is, as pavement ages, it's called, or as bituminous ages, it's called flexible pavement because it actually moves, so cracks generate. And as the years go on, those cracks continue to get worse, water freezing action and things of that nature. And so by going through town and continually maintaining and monitoring these streets, the ones that are savable or salvageable and not have to be reconstructed, we try to do this crack seal and seal coat every 7 to 10 years time frame to maintain that level of, so that we can get away with no more than an overlay rather than a reconstruct.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next is a resolution awarding project 1808 to Allied Blacktop Company in the amount of $39,404.
Move to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the resolution. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Meske.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next is acknowledgement of 2018 first quarter donations. Mr. Okens.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, before you in page 122 of your electronic version is a committee action form spelling out that we have received 3 donations in the first quarter. The first donation is $100 donated by the Hendershots for the K9 body armor. Second one is $100,000 from the Unitarian Universal Church for the Human Rights Commission, and $4,757.12 for the dog statue and bench for the dog park. By statute, the council needs to accept these donations by resolution, and letters of thanks have been sent.
Thank you. I think you meant $100, not $100,000.
I'm sorry if I said 100,000. I was misspoke.
I know Councilmember Meske is a good speaker, but not that good. Council, what are your wishes?
Move to approve.
Motion
Second.
been made and seconded to approve resolution acknowledging the 2018 first quarter donations. Discussion.
Just a clarification, I think he missed one of the names that we had the list on. First 100,000 there, I didn't. $100. You said Hendershot, but I think there's another name that we have listed anyway. I just wanted to make sure they got recognized.
I'm sorry. Yes, with the $100 was from the Schaffbauers and Hendershots.
Thank you.
Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Plowman,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes as well. Next is the consideration of a letter of intent with Glacial Ridge Curling for the construction and lease of a new curling facility. Mr. Holland.
Mayor and council, tonight we have the consideration of the letter of intent with the Glacial Ridge Curling organization. I'm going to recommend a recommendation of approval. This document has been signed by their organizational president, Don Nelson. Several members of the curlers are here tonight if there's any questions or concerns. Also, I would note that I sat down with the curlers myself and their attorney, and then further, we had our city attorney negotiate back and forth with their representative to come to this final agreement over the last 2 weeks. And so I think we have a document now that we both can work with and go forward with the project. And basically, again, to remind everyone in the public, this is an agreement that would allow for the construction of a curling facility out near the Civic Center beginning this year, and it would be paid for in donations and in-kind work by various people, but mostly by the curlers themselves. And then this would be leased back to the curlers in the subsequent years for a minimum of 25 years with renewals thereafter. So it's a long-term lease. And so with that, Mayor, I will turn it over to our city attorney if he would like to say anything further about it. But I would say, again, I recommend approval. And again, this is not a binding document, but it's basically what it says. It's a letter of intent and what we intend to do going further.
Mr. Scott, I'm not sure if you have additional comments.
Just very briefly, Mayor, that's correct. This is a letter of intent. This is essentially both parties saying here are the essential terms of the transaction. We're all in agreement. That allows us to take what is, if it's approved in the letter of intent and develop the actual build-to-suit lease agreement that would result consistent with these terms. The one point I would make and follow up to the discussion 2 weeks ago at the council meeting, there was, as you'll recall, a discussion of the threshold question. Is this going to be a city project where the city would accept donated funds but be responsible for contracting for the construction of the facility itself? Or would this be a situation where the city would simply license the curling club to access city property and build their own facility and then donate it to the city at the end? And I think after further discussions, this has stayed with the idea that this will be a city project where the city accepts funds, and the timing of the donations would be 60% before the city selects a company to design the facility, and then 40% of the funds to be raised for the facility would be donated in time for bonding payments to be satisfied at a schedule to be determined later. So that was I think the biggest issue. We had to circle back and make sure it worked for both parties, and my understanding is that, yes, we have an arrangement that everyone is on board with now.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson or Mr. Amber, either of you wish to make a comment?
I think we're very happy.
Okay. Council, what are your wishes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve a consideration of a letter of intent with Glacial Ridge Curling for the construction and lease of a new curling facility. Discussion. Councilmember Rasmus.
Thank you. I just want to again reiterate that this is exciting, and I wish you all the luck in raising the funds. And this is very positive for the city and the surrounding area to be able to come to Willmar for curling. And I hope it succeeds. And I'm glad you're happy, and I'm glad we're moving forward.
Councilman Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What is the bonding referring to in here? In case we have to bond for the additional money to pay for it, or?
Yeah, the bonding requirement is that once we get to 60% of the funds raised, 40% is eligible for bonding, depending upon how the lease is structured. And when that's done, the curling club would be responsible for those bond payments.
Okay,
So
but it
none of
would-
the costs come back onto the.
But it would be under the city's bonding authority.
That is correct.
Okay, and then I understood from the last meeting that we really didn't decide whether it was going to be a city project or their project to turn over to us. And I see here it's going to be a city project. Is there a reason for that? Why does it have to be a city project?
I believe, Mr. Scott will have him answer it. I believe the answer is if we're going to do bonding, we have to have a city project. I think is the answer, but I'm going to let our city attorney speak to that.
Mayor, Councilmember Christensen, that is my understanding, that one of the reasons this is before you as a proposed city project is to allow the curling club additional time to raise the final 40% of the project costs and not have to have 100% raised before any contract is awarded. So in order for that to happen, it has to be a city project.
So the city's going to be responsible for a design. It says they're going to use drawings from Marcus Construction and with input from the curling club. Are we charging a design or a engineering fee or something to them? We do on street projects and anything else that the city is in charge of. I think it's a 15% fee. Is that included in there too?
That has not been discussed, and it is not in the agreement, is the way that I read it.
Okay, so then, as I understood and heard earlier, then this agreement is, I think from Mr. Scott's words, not binding?
Correct.
It's just saying that they can go ahead with their fundraising, and when they get that amount, we'll discuss it again? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, this allows the curling club to understand what parameters the council has agreed to. And so then the lease can be developed, and then the lease will come back to us, and we'll approve the lease. And when we do that, then it'll be binding at that point.
Okay, so we don't know what it's going to be leased for or amounts or anything, but we want to make sure when it does come back to us that it's going to pay for everything that when they're using the facility. I mean, so there's a lot of faith put into it by the city, in other words, from what I see.
Well, I would argue the point there's a lot of faith being put into it by the curling club as well. I think it's
money.
a two-way street.
It's money.
Right. The lease, in the letter of in the LOI, it addresses the fact that the 25-year lease that the city administrator referenced would be for $1. They would be responsible for their expenses, and then there's 3 additional 5-year extensions. So it could be up to 40 years. And that is under the letter or the LOI.
Okay.
Councilmember Fontes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just also want to clarify for the public listening at home that the Glacial Ridge Curling Club will be responsible for raising 100% of the funds prior to any bonding. So they will have a commitment, but they will have collected the 60%. So just in case anyone is listening at home and is not aware of that, the commitment will be there for the funds before we bond.
Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the difference between the last meeting where it kind of came up and everything was kind of a mad scramble, what we were going to do with this, to this meeting. I think it's a testament to our city's administration and our staff and our legal department, as well as Glacial Ridge, being able to communicate. I think communication is paramount when it comes to projects like this. Keeping an open discourse and dialogue, and I think an excellent job was done. And I think an LOI is a great and essential launching point, and I think this gives us everything that we need to be confident the project can get off the ground. So we're excited.
Councilmember Nelson.
I just wanted to say thank you to the curlers for believing in Willmar. I'm pleased that we are at this point in time with our negotiations, and I wish you the very best with your fundraising and looking forward to having a curling center in Willmar. Thank you.
So, Mr. Amberg, I'd be very surprised if you didn't stop by my house, but stop by my house, I'm good for a donation. So I think you already knew that. So with that, roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next is a consideration of 2018 police vehicle purchase. Chief Felt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Item before you tonight is to request authorization to purchase 4 police vehicles utilizing funds from requested in the 2018 CIP. This was first brought to your attention at the April 2nd work session. At that time, instructions were given to check with local vendors for pricing. That was done, and after speaking with 2 local vendors, we did find that Atwater Ford came up at $100 per vehicle higher than state bid. However, our recommendation would be to purchase those 4 vehicles throughout the year from Atwater Ford if approved, if the funds are approved by the council.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the purchase of 4 police vehicles utilizing funds from the 2018 capital improvement plan and make the purchase from Atwater Ford. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
Schwantes,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Maskey,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Chief Felt, I want to thank you for the extra work that you took to make this happen. I say all the time, as other council members do as well, what's good for Kaneohe County is good for Willmar, Minnesota. And this is an example of working together collaboratively within the county to keep the dollars local. These dollars, when they're spent locally, spend many, many, many times over. And so this is a reinvestment back in our community, and thank you for your hard work in making that happen. I also want to give a kudos out to our Public Works Department because they've done the same thing. And you can't believe how excited I am that you guys are buying local. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're elected to do. We're to spend that money locally, and we're supposed to spend it wisely. So thank you for your good work. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Plowman.
One more question for the chief, if I may. In the entire lineup of law enforcement vehicles, the vehicle that the chief drives, where does that stand in the replacement schedule?
That is the black 2008 Impala that you see on the vehicle list there. However, the intention is that I would take one of the lesser used vehicles that are currently the older ones in the fleet and put some more miles on that and transfer a new vehicle to somebody else.
Okay. My point of interest being that the chief has been driving a vehicle and put many, many miles on that vehicle over the years, and it's much appreciated and noticed.
Thank you.
I will also say to that our chief should be driving a nice vehicle because you deserve it. You've worked hard, and we believe in you. And our department is where it is today because of the leadership you provide. So thank you for that good leadership. You're doing a great job, so keep up the good work.
Thank you. All of our vehicles are nice vehicles, so I'm set. So, thanks.
Okay, with that, that's the agenda items. Mr. Holland, City Administrator comments.
Mayor and Council, I've got a couple things tonight, and I don't know if we're going to get them resolved, but there'll be some phone calls coming and some emails coming tomorrow because we've got some meetings that are hanging out there, and we're having some difficulty getting 15 people to agree on a date and time. I blame Carol for most of it. She's always on vacation. But visiting my old town of Chillicothe, but I'm kidding. The first thing is tonight we had a closed executive session scheduled, and then I pulled that. I want to give an explanation of that. That was my intention. I've been working with all the unions about every other week or at least twice a month. I meet with the unions. And at least once a month, if not twice a month, I talk with our legal team, Brandon. and we discuss what's going on. We've made significant progress, I will just say that, and I was ready to present. But then I had a discussion with our legal team this week, and based upon that discussion, I felt like it would be better to pull it from the agenda tonight. Now, having said that, I thought about having that closed executive session on the 30th, which is our 5th Monday. But Brandon, our city labor attorney, is doing mediation in the cities that night. And so I've got to look for a different night, so because it's imperative that he be part of that closed session, I feel. He's been very helpful and instrumental, especially with Minnesota statutes and laws and me being new here to the state. So look for that date coming tomorrow. If we, I hope we don't mind, you don't mind if we infringe, and we might call you if we don't get an email answer, so Janelle may do that. So if you see a call from Janelle. But I'm looking at either the 1st or 2nd of May or the 8th or 9th of May. If you have some dates, those are bad, you know you're going to be out of town or traveling. If you could send that to me in an email tomorrow, I would appreciate it. It will help us pin down these dates. Now, having said that, the joint meeting that we wanted to have with Willmar Utilities to discuss possibly joining the city administration, City Hall building with their utility building, I had that tentatively set on the 24th, but that has basically fallen apart as well. We just cannot get a majority of either group on that night. So again, I'm going to be sending out some dates. Again, it looks like it's going to push into May because, like I said, that week of the 24th, and unfortunately that last 3 days, the 25th through the 27th, my son, as I've been bragging about, is getting his flight wings. If you haven't heard, I'll say it again. So I'm going down to see his graduation. I'm very proud of my son. So I'm going to be out that 3 days. The last thing is that on the 30th, the 5th Monday, I have that scheduled tentatively for 5 p.m. on the 30th. And Mayor, I guess I'm just asking, we're still, as of this date, still keeping that on the schedule, the 30th for a work session?
Correct.
Okay. So anyway, that's, I appreciate any type of feedback. If you have some block-out dates you want to send me tomorrow, otherwise look for, those 2 particular dates. And like I said, if we have to push it into May, but as you can see tonight, we have got the governor's fishing opener. I mean, we've got the mayor's prayer breakfast. We've got the mayor's bike ride. We've got the Lions 5K. I mean, May opens up as long as it's not snowing, right? So anyway, that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Under mayor's comments, we need people to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals. So if you have names of people that would be interested in serving on that, please get those either to myself, Janelle, or Mr. Peterson for consideration for that position. And also tomorrow, the Robbins Island Task Force, the Mayor's Task Force on Robbins Island will be receiving their final report at 10 a.m. at the Willmar Area Community Foundation. Again, that will be on April 17th at 10 a.m. at the Willmar Area Community Foundation. They'll be receiving the synopsis of the public input session that was very well attended, and then hopefully some direction will be coming to the council in the first part of May as far as what direction the recommendation from that task force will be taking. So with that, I have nothing else. Councilmember Christensen.
I'm ready to go home.
Councilmember Schwantes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to note that the Friends of Robbins Island are all welcome to come to Robbins Island on May 2nd from 5 till 8 o'clock at night. We're going to be cleaning up Robbins Island and cleaning up the Willmar Destination Playground in anticipation of the governor's opener and also Rockin' Robbins happening. So we'd really like to show our best foot And we're looking for people to bring your work gloves, a pair of boots, maybe a pail and rake, and come and help us clean things up so we can look good. Thank you.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to talk about the downtown. I've been invited to and I think this is open to the public, a Somalian Nation of Poets event sponsored by the New American Development Center in collaboration with the Islamic Society of Willmar on April 21st, 2018 at 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Willmar Conference Center. As our community continues coming together and building relationships, we are highlighting the unique and beautiful cultures of our heritage. At the event, we will be showing a documentary that features the art of expressive communications. So just want to make you aware of that, and I'm excited to be invited to be a part of that, and I've even got a couple favorite poems. Thank you.
Councilmember Osmus.
Thank you. I would just like to give a shout out and a thank you to the Public Works Department for the snow removal after the latest storm that we had over the weekend. Much appreciated. I know they put in long hours.
Councilmember Maskey.
Nothing coming up, but something that did happen last week, the naturalization ceremony that was at the barn was very well attended, but very moving for everybody who was there. I know we did talk with the judge and his clerk afterwards, and hopefully the League of Women Voters and the Human Rights Commission will work on that again, but they are very amenable to maybe coming back out to Willmar in the very near future, and so I think we'll be exploring that. And so if you didn't get to go this time, talk to somebody who did, and please look for that in the future.
Thank you. Councilmember Plowman.
Nothing for the good of the order. Thank you.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I opened up my iPad, and I'm not real good at opening it up, I came up upon this thing. It's a City of Willmar and mission statement and community values. After a year and a half, it's there. I want to thank the mayor and the staff for putting it there in front of us. So, thank you.
Actually, it was staff that did it, so thanks for the accolades, but it's actually staff that did it. So thanks for the compliment, but it deserves to go to staff.
I noticed you said a year and a half. I only been here a year, so thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
I just want to say a special thank you to Beth Fisher and the CVB staff. There have been hours and hours, and all the volunteers, Brad Hansen. I don't know if everyone realized how much coordination this governor's fishing opener takes, because everything that is being done has to be approved by the Minnesota Tourism Association and the governor's fishing opener, whatever office that is. And so I just want to make a special thank you to you and wish you the best success, because I know the ice is coming out, and there's great opportunities to volunteer. And so please be there, and it's a great event for our area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So, second.
Motion made and seconded. We are adjourned.
No?
That's not plugged in.
I was never plugged in.